I stayed silent when my wife cheated. Then I made one move. I didn't confront her when I found out. No drama, no shouting. I just watched everything carefully while she got more comfortable lying to me. Every excuse, every late night, every message, I kept track. She thought she was in control, but I was already steps ahead. When the moment finally came, I didn't argue or explain anything. I simply made one move that exposed everything at once. The silence that followed said more than words ever could. I'm 34M, a financial analyst by trade, which means I'm professionally wired to spot patterns other people miss. I notice when numbers don't add up. I notice when things are off by even a fraction. So when my life started quietly unraveling 8 months ago, I didn't explode. I didn't cry into my pillow or call my brother drunk at midnight. I did what I always do. I started building a file. My wife and I had been married for 6 years. We met in our late 20s, moved in together fast, got engaged faster. She was sharp and funny, and I was in love, which meant I rationalized things I probably shouldn't have. A certain possessiveness about her phone. A habit of subtly reframing every argument, so I ended up apologizing even when I wasn't sure what I'd done wrong. Tiny things. The kind you file under "nobody's perfect" and move on from. The first real crack showed up on a Tuesday night in January. She came home about 40 minutes later than usual. No text. No heads up. When I asked, she said traffic was backed up on the bridge. I checked the traffic app on my phone out of pure habit. The roads had been completely clear the entire evening. I didn't say anything. I just set my phone face down and remembered the number. 40 minutes. The next week she started going to the gym on Thursday nights. New habit. Fine. People change their routines. But then she added Sundays. Then she started leaving her gym bag in the car instead of bringing it inside. Then she began showering at the gym before coming home. Individually, none of those things mean anything. Together, they're a pattern. And I track patterns for a living. I started paying very close attention. About 3 weeks in, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to answer the door for a delivery. The screen lit up with a notification from an app one didn't recognize. Not a standard texting app, not Instagram. Something else. A name I'd never heard her mention appeared in the preview. I didn't touch the phone. I just looked at it for about 3 seconds and walked back to what I was doing. Most people would have grabbed that phone. I didn't. I've spent 12 years in finance learning that the worst thing you can do when you suspect fraud is tip off the person doing it. You gather evidence first. You build the case. Then you move. So I went to the hardware store that weekend and bought a magnetic GPS tracker. Fully legal, we co-owned both cars. I attached it under the wheel well of her car on a Saturday morning while she was in the shower. Then I opened a notebook and started logging timestamps. When she left. When she came back. How long the gym sessions lasted. I kept the notebook at my office. Never at home. The picture that developed over the next 6 weeks was not pretty. She was meeting someone twice a week. Sometimes 3 times. The location was an apartment complex about 12 minutes from our house. Visits averaged 2 hours. She'd stop by the gym for roughly 20 minutes on the way back, just long enough to actually get sweaty, and then come home smelling like her own shampoo. She had thought it through carefully. She was disciplined about it. What she hadn't thought about was me. I sat down with a family law attorney in February. I laid out everything I had. He told me that while our state operates under no-fault divorce, documented evidence of infidelity could absolutely influence alimony determinations. Specifically, it could be used to argue against awarding alimony to a cheating spouse. He also told me not to confront her, not to move or hide any money, and not to change my financial behavior in any way that could later look like I was trying to conceal assets. Everything needed to look completely normal until we were ready to file. I followed his instructions exactly. Meanwhile, she got comfortable. And comfortable people get careless. And careless people get bold. By March, she stopped offering excuses. She'd just kiss me on the cheek and say "back in a bit" before heading out. She became colder at home. More dismissive. Started picking fights over things that had never bothered her before. How I loaded the dishwasher, my work hours, my tone when I answered her questions. I understood later what that was. She was constructing a narrative. She was trying to position herself as the frustrated, neglected wife so that when the divorce came, it would look like she had legitimate grievances. She was building her case while I was building mine. Then she made a move I didn't fully anticipate. In April, she sat me down and said she thought we should refinance the house. She came prepared, a folder, printed documents, a rehearsed pitch about interest rates and monthly savings. I listened to the whole thing. Then I looked carefully at the paperwork she slid across the table. Buried deep in the loan restructuring language was a clause that would alter how equity was assigned to each party in the event the property became disputed. It was subtle. Most people would have missed it entirely. She had gotten professional help preparing those documents. That wasn't something she put together on her own. I looked up from the folder and said, "Let me sit with this over the weekend." She smiled. Of course. No rush. There was absolutely a rush. She was quietly repositioning assets before the divorce she was already planning. She had her own attorney. She was 3 moves ahead on a chessboard she believed only she could see. I photographed every page that night and sent them to my attorney the next morning. He confirmed exactly what I'd suspected and told me we needed to file within 30 days. We had enough. It was time. But I didn't just want to file. I wanted to do it right. Over the next 3 weeks, I hired a licensed private investigator. 2 weeks of work, roughly $2,400. What came back were clear photographs of her and the man entering and leaving the apartment complex together on multiple occasions. Legal, admissible, documented. Combined with the GPS logs, the timestamps, and the notebook I'd been keeping since January, it was airtight. I also did some quiet research into who this man actually was. He wasn't a random person. He was a coworker. And he was married. He had a daughter in elementary school. His wife had absolutely no idea. That changed the calculation for me. Because there was another person being completely deceived, and that person deserved to know the truth. I reached out to her carefully, through a mutual connection, and we met at a coffee shop about a week before I planned to make my move. I showed her what I had. She sat very still for a long time. She thanked me quietly. Then she left. What she did with that information from there was entirely her decision. But she deserved to make that decision with accurate information. I chose a Sunday evening in mid-May. Her parents were visiting for the weekend, her mother, her father, her younger sister. They were staying through Monday morning. We'd had a full dinner, everyone relaxed, her playing the role of loving wife effortlessly for the benefit of her family. She was warm and engaged and laughing at her father's old stories. I watched her do it from across the table and thought, she has had a lot of practice at this. After dinner, while her mother was helping clear the plates, I placed a folder on the dining room table and sat back down. Inside were 12 photographs from the private investigator. A printed timeline covering January through April, cross-referenced with GPS data. And on top, her copy of the divorce filing my attorney had prepared and submitted to the court that past Friday. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't say her name. I just sat there. She noticed the folder first. Picked it up. Opened it. The color left her face so fast it was startling. "What is this?" she said. It wasn't even a question, just a flat whisper. "That's everything," I said. "Since January." Her father had walked back in from the kitchen. He looked at the folder in her hands. Her mother stopped moving. Her sister, who had started to say something about dessert, went completely quiet. You don't understand what," she started. "The GPS logs are in there," I said. "The dates, the times, the apartment complex location. The photographs are from a licensed PI. And the top sheet is your copy of the divorce filing. My attorney filed with the court on Friday." She dropped the folder on the table hard. "You had me followed? You went through my things. This is insane, this is completely." "I found out in January," I said. "I waited 8 months to see if you'd say something. You didn't. What you did instead was bring me a refinancing document in April with a clause designed to protect your equity share before you filed on your end. That one landed differently." Her father's jaw went tight. Her mother sat down slowly in the nearest chair. "That was just a refinancing. That was just—" "It wasn't," I said. My attorney reviewed every page. "I can walk through exactly what that clause was structured to accomplish if you want to have that conversation." She had nothing to say to that. What followed was loud and messy and painful. Her sister started crying. Her mother kept repeating her name. Her father asked her direct questions, quiet, serious questions, and she couldn't answer any of them consistently. She tried multiple versions. "It wasn't serious. It was a mistake. It only happened a few times. I had pushed her away. I worked too much. She had been lonely for years." Every version contradicted the one before it. Her father, who has always been a straight-talking man, looked at her at one point and said, "Stop. Just stop talking." The part she never saw coming, the part that genuinely broke the thing open, came 3 days later. The man she had been seeing was let go from their shared workplace after HR received a formal complaint. His wife had already retained her own attorney and filed for divorce within days of our coffee shop meeting. When word quietly filtered through her professional circle that the affair had been fully exposed, my wife realized she had built her entire second life alongside someone whose own situation was collapsing simultaneously. She had counted on secrecy that was already gone. The divorce proceedings ran about 9 months. She contested almost everything: the equity split, the investment accounts, the asset division. Her attorney pushed hard on every front. But documentation is patient. Documentation doesn't get emotional. Documentation doesn't contradict itself. My attorney used the evidence of infidelity to successfully argue against any alimony award. The refinancing document she'd brought me in April was presented as evidence of attempted dissipation of marital assets, trying to restructure joint property unfavorably before filing. The court took it seriously. The house sold, and the equity split reflected the full picture of what had actually been happening. I retained the majority of our joint investment accounts, which I could demonstrate had been funded almost entirely through my income across the marriage. She walked away with substantially less than she had planned when she started planning. The last contact I had with her was through our attorneys. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been said in front of her family in that dining room in May. I won't tell you I'm completely fine. The betrayal doesn't dissolve just because you handled it well. There are nights it settles over you and you just have to wait it out. But there's a real difference between being hurt and being destroyed. I'm hurt. I'm not destroyed. What I know now is that silence is not the same as weakness. Patience is not the same as being passive. And the moment someone starts underestimating the quiet person in the room, that is usually the exact moment everything starts unraveling for them. She believed she was in control from January all the way through May. She was never in control. She just thought she was because I let her think it. That's the difference between reacting and responding. If this story kept you hooked till the end, subscribe, because apparently one move was just the opening, and I've got a whole playbook left.